Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Forest Therapeutics Podcast with your host. I'm Dr. B.
Dr. LaKeith.
Dr. Gigi.
And welcome again. And we're going to talk about a very, very important topic. For those of you who live in the Washington, D.C. area, in the DMV area, in the D.C. metropolitan area, for those of you who don't know, we are located in this area. And we're going to talk about the federal and military occupation of Washington, D.C., and how that has a mental health or psychological impact on us. And I would like to start with our new co-host, Dr. Gigi Bell. Dr. Bell, let me ask you this question. I'm going to start with you. What do you think, or what do you feel are the mental health impact of seeing armed soldiers for the Washingtonians that are walking around the Washington, D.C. area?
Well, I think you all know my area is all around anxiety. That's a space I like to work in. And imagine waking up one day, preparing for your daily routine, take my shower, put on my clothes, grab my bag, head out the door, and now I am seeing armed guardsmen walking around with rifles as big as your head up and down your street. Your body is not registering that as safety. Right? So you can spin that however you would like to spin it. Your body doesn't recognize that as safety. Your body recognizes that as a threat. We are trained to see people with big giant guns walking around because that is not normal in the United States of America.
Correct.
Right. So we're going to process that physiologically in your body. You will process that as a threat, which will increase naturally stress hormones, which leads to anxiety.
Fair enough. And Keith, pivoting to you, because when Dr. Bell laid that out, it made me think of you, because I like that you said that it triggers the anxiety and all the bodily responses to it. And specifically how you said guardsmen with big guns walking around. Keith, how do you think this might impact the black and brown people? Because of our interaction when it comes to law enforcement alone and agents of the federal government who have infiltrated the communities historically. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's historical evidence that shows that. How do you feel that this may specifically impact black people? And Dr. Bell, if you want to jump in on that question, go right ahead as well. But for the two of you and for myself, because I'll jump in when I need to, how do you feel, starting off with you with that one, it will impact black people, brown people?
Well, to Dr. Bell's point, hypervigilance.
Yes.
So now when you walk outside, it's this concern about being watched, being scrutinized, being on some levels even targeted, especially if you're a young person living in Washington, D.C. Because I know the catalyst for this has been this idea of youth violence is so out of control in the D.C. area. And don't get me wrong, youth violence is an issue in D.C., but it's also an issue in a lot of urban, rural, suburban spaces. So D.C. is not unique in that.
No, as a matter of fact, the crime rate in certain red states is significantly higher than that in certain blue states.
Yeah.
Particularly, there are some, Arkansas in particular, the crime rate there is through the roof.
Yeah.
But yet there's no occupation there.
Yeah.
But there is an occupation in the liberal federal city of Washington, D.C., which has a history of being black. Its nickname was Chocolate City.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to share that.
No, you're right. And so it becomes this hypervigilance and concern about, believe it or not, your safety in regards to the people who's supposed to be there theoretically to make you feel safe. Because let's be honest, it's not like it's unprecedented that there has been bad interactions or misunderstandings between police officers or people who are policing and civilians, and particularly black people.
Right.
So there's always those concerns about, like, okay, well, what if they misinterpret just an over exuberance of youth as far as like just being out, being loud, as like, oh, they're into some sort of mischiefs, and then things just completely go left and somebody's child ends up getting shot. Or even just as bad, someone ends up going to jail that does not need to be in jail.
No, I agree with that 1,000%, because when you said it, it made me think about historically the black community in law enforcement. It's always been tension, just from a historical standpoint. The slave patrols that would then become policing in and of itself, and they are quote unquote trained to be law enforcement and peacemakers. However, the people who were put in place to protect and serve have often targeted, discriminated, and denigrated the black community. and now in modern day times as well, and historically the brown community, but the black community, they were actually trained to uphold the law. Now we have soldiers in the United States National Guard that would make them soldiers who aren't trained in law enforcement, who are trained as soldiers to protect this nation against enemies. Well, if you're giving them a mission to come into an area to occupy it, you have to designate the parameters of their mission. But by and large, there also has to be a quote unquote enemy. Yeah. Of course, I'm saying that they can chew gum and walk at the same time. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they're given specific orders to target X group of people, because they're not even in the crime-filled areas. But to what you said earlier, that if the interaction between black people and law enforcement has been tumultuous, and that's me being kind by using that word, I would only imagine that if it spilt over, it would be worse with potential soldiers and black people, because they're not trained, at least in law enforcement and peacekeeping. And yes, I agree that it will produce hypervigilance. I don't know. I haven't seen any reports if they were able to carry their assault rifles. But when you're carrying an assault rifle around, that's not a normal thing to see, like you were saying, Dr. Bell. A pistol on the hip of a police officer or a pistol on the hip of anybody is enough to shock the system. An assault rifle, an M4, would be more than that, way more than that. Did you have any thoughts, Dr. Bell, or anything we said?
I'm taking it all in and nodding my head a lot, because I'm in a great agreement. But I just think the lived history of black communities specifically, there's just something to that racial trauma that is passed on to us, right? Like there's so much of that, and just the idea of being surveilled and watched.
That's a good point.
Right? That's very uncomfortable. That lends to the hypervigilance, right? Like when you feel like their people have been sent to a space to watch and surveil and monitor you, that's naturally going to make you on edge. And being on edge and hyper-focused and hypervigilant leads to like mental exhaustion.
No way. I would agree with that.
And the bigger thing that we haven't had the conversation, I'm not just talking about us, I'm just talking about broadly, is the fact that, let's be honest, this sends a message of criminalizing black people.
No, I would agree with you.
It just sends that message, and that is one of the things that this reinforces to the black community, particularly in the Washington, D.C. area, as in, like, as much as we have this president that's trying to say the opposite of a meritocracy, a meritocracy as far as like trying to say, well, all people are equal and we don't necessarily view people in the context of race, it should be merit, things like that. This particular action doesn't warrant, because DC isn't even in the top 10 of most dangerous cities.
Correct.
But yet it's a situation where we're chosen, and we're chosen because you've decided to politicize our city and politicize our life to send a message to other people in other jurisdictions who are in the opposite side of the aisle and have a different ideology, and try to show and push your power and show your weight at our expense, and not necessarily really take into account the historical implications of that. And then the default becomes, well, if they're not doing anything, why they're so worried about it? And my whole thing is, I would like to tell those same people, let's send the National Guard into your community for 30 days, sit outside in front of your house, just patrol, and let's see how you feel about that.
Yeah, because it's not just the National Guard, those other federal agents as well, to your point, but you're right.
Which also is smoke screen for ICE to come in and remove some of our brown brothers and sisters and other people who are here who are undocumented. So it's just been a whole political ploy, and we're just like the chess pieces, and it's unsettling, it's disrespectful, and not to mention the fact that it undermines what it is this country is supposed to be about. And the one thing I will always give black people is this: we have always been the litmus test of what justice is. Is America really going to hold itself to what it says it's about? And from what they're demonstrating to us, they're full of it. This administration is completely full of it. And this becomes a demonstration to that, not just to us black people here in the Washington metropolitan area, but black people broadly, because there really is no justification saying, well, DC is just a crime-ridden. The only thing that you can really hold on to is the fact that DC is the nation's capital, that it is, and its uniqueness, and also for the fact that he has more authority by the way the structure of DC as it being a federal city. That's it. Other than that, there was no justification. If anything, you would have done better sending to Arkansas or sending it down to Louisiana, where the murders per capita are way higher.
Right.
But
I was just going to say, to your point, yeah, they had already reported that crime was already down 30%. So it was at
but you know, to beat that, the only thing you have to say is those numbers are made up. They're fake.
Oh yeah, anything.
Everything's fake that you disagree
anything
with.
you don't agree with is definitely fake.
Right.
Let me ask you this: do you think that even in the spaces that you just named, that military occupying this space is the solution to
Absolutely
Not at all.
not.
Exactly,
No,
right?
it does
So
not.
that's where it's
The
like
big
it's completely
issue.
illogical,
Yeah,
right?
literally investing in social programs have been proven to reduce crime in communities and improve mental health. They Vic Mensa came out. I don't know if y'all saw it online. It was like earlier this week. He talked about literally how introducing CBT and mindfulness programs in school reduced aggression and all the other negative mental health effects. Those things help. Over policing never helps. So I do not agree that they should not use the military as the United States Army in particular is the occupying force. So for those of you who don't know, as an occupying force, they go in, they set up shop, they fight the war, and they stay. So therefore, if you're going to send anyone in to be there for a long time, it would be them. But this isn't war, to your point. You don't need that type of response to quote unquote crime. And something you said, Keith, and I want to go back because just because you had something else to say, Dr. Bell, was the criminalization of black people often leads to the justification of horrendous policies against all minorities. I personally, this is my opinion from looking at the political landscape. I think it is broader than black people. I think that he's using crime and the historical trope that black people in black cities are crime ridden to desensitize people to the presence of a military force in your area. Because I do think that we're not even talking about 2028. I think that the 2026 mid-elections are going to drastically shift the nation again to the other way. And definitely by 2028, I don't think he's going to want to get out. This is to desensitize everybody to seeing armed soldiers running around in the event that we don't certify something that he doesn't want certified. I just think that, to what you were saying, that we are pawns in a greater scheme, but it's using old racist tropes. Because the reason why I'm saying that now, taking away just my opinion and going back to what the facts of things, he said he wants to do it to Baltimore. He's doing it to DC. He wants to do it to Chicago, and he's already done it to California. By and large, he's targeting specific cities that are black owned and predominantly black, saying they are full of crime. That is why I say that it's a trope. It's racist at its core, but also it's just a greater scheme. It's a small scheme in a greater playbook. That's what I wanted to say.
And to Dr. Gigi's point, I hope people are paying attention. And if they're not, I'm going to say this out loud for you. He does not care about people. Because another part of this component when we're talking about DC is our unhoused community. But I'm gonna get to that, but I'm going to come back to this. To your point about, if you really cared about youth crime and youth violence and crime in DC, it would be a situation of assessing DC's resources and trying to figure out who's underfunded.
Correct.
You, at this rate, to keep the National Guard in DC, it is $1 million a day. So when they hit the 30-day mark, which I believe is next Wednesday, you would have spent $30 million for people who have trained to come and move homeless people out and displace them, to pick up trash, to lay down fertilizer. $30 million that could have went into community centers, community violence intervention programs, mental health programs, something sustainable and long term. This was just something to make his base get riled up and say, see, I can completely eliminate crime. See, I go in there and I make things happen. And then once they all go, we still have the same problem that existed before.
Yeah, I agree with you, Keith, to that, because that $30 million could have went to social programs to help the community, specifically when it comes to mental health, but also creating jobs as well. We
helping
also
the
know
homeless
that,
people that you displaced.
Right. Creating jobs and opportunities decreases crime. I know that helping the homeless population is more broader than housing. That I do know it's a multifaceted system, but taking that $30 million and doing that as well. But also it is by and large a distraction from the Epstein files. It's just another big distraction where, everybody look over here.
It is, but not to catch you up, because I really
no, go right ahead. I knew you were gonna,
because I also like to point this out.
He's
because
excited.
Because I've been thinking about this for days and it really pisses me off. It also speaks to the fact that we as a country, we still do not care about people who are unhoused, because look how we let that happen. Everyone's just saying, well, it's a nation's capital. It shouldn't be a tent city. It shouldn't be just tents and people vagrant and just going around begging for money. No one paused in a meaningful way, in a huge way, to ask, where are these people going to be put? They just settle for, we're going to put them in the shelters in D.C. We're going to lined up for mental health services. And no one even followed up to check and see. And I'm going to tell y'all something. Y'all didn't check and see, because this was happening. The organizations, the wonderful organizations that work with the unhoused, they are completely underfunded right now and overwhelmed. The community mental health facilities in the District of Columbia, the core service agencies, completely underfunded and overwhelmed. We don't care about unhoused people in the way that we like to pretend that we do. They became a political pawn in all of this, and we're not having those conversations. And it really blows my mind that people really follow this particular administration, because the simple fact that they don't care about anybody who does not service them, who does not look like them, who does not fall in line with them. They say to hell to everybody, to hell to black people and their rights to feel safe in their city, to hell with the people who are unhoused. There's clearly something wrong with them, because even we have the president the nerve to say, like, homeless people that are maniacs. And we let that slide.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, what we're watching is like political theater.
Oh,
right?
yes.
It's just incredibly performative. There's no links to anything that is direct that will help any of these populations. There's nothing that actually is showing root cause, systemic issue changes that will allow crime to be, let's say, reducing the crime rate, right? Because the idea of a crime-free city is wild. So, like,
fictional.
Right. So, like, but again, when you start having that narrative and you're playing to your supporters, you're playing to your base, it's just theater.
I agree with that to the point that you're right. It is theater, because I think the word theater is appropriate, because if it's theater, it gives you something to look at, but it also has a narrative that it runs with, right? The only society I've ever grown up in is a capitalistic society, right? So I don't know how socialism or communism works. But what I can tell you about growing up in a capitalistic society is that capitalism is exploitive. You will take advantage of people, meaning that the bottom line is the almighty dollar. So anything that doesn't contribute to that is considered as, I guess, waste or non-useful. So to your point, what you were saying before, I agree with it, that we let the administration come in and look at homeless people and be like, you just got to figure it out on your own, as if we as a society aren't collectively responsible for one another. And I think that what happens when I'm going to tie it into capitalism is that capitalism is very individualistic. America has a history of wanting to be a meritocracy when it is not, but is really big on rugged individualism. And I think that, to your point, is it being a theater, I'm going to use the word as an illusion to piggyback and play off your words, is because if I instill in the community or into the population that if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it's on you if you fail, and everybody runs with that narrative, next thing you know, then if it's up to you individually to do it, you don't need this program, you don't need that program. Well, by and large, that's not true. A society is a group of people that came together to create common laws, a common culture, and a common responsibility to protect one another. So therefore, like, it's even back in evolutionary times. When we were cavemen on the plains of Africa, we realized there are strength in numbers. We need to come together to protect ourselves from the wildlife that are out here. And now moving to modern day times, there's strength in numbers, but I need more. I need. And if you can't get it, that's a shame on you. In our society, though, those who are in power hold the majority of the resources from the majority of the people at the bottom who do not. And then we have a culture that says, well, if you didn't make it, it's on you. And then you get to our community, the Black community, where it's like, well, we're not given the same opportunities. When we say that we're dealing with prejudice, it's dismissed. When we say we're dealing with microaggressions, it's dismissed. Despite the fact that they've done countless social studies that show that a white person with a felony is more likely to get a call back for a job than a Black man with a degree, or they're right at the same rate, is wild. I tied all that together to say that I do think it's political theater to literally just show that at least we're doing something, and to distract from those greater issues, the things that you say, because you're right. We just completely let them come in. I don't know where the homeless people were moved to. I haven't even heard any reports about it. And I get my news from independent media. Where did they move to?
So the myth is that, they've been pushed out to Montgomery County or parts of Maryland. Montgomery County and Prince George's County has not seen an uptick in their homeless community population. You know where they end up happening, unfortunately?
What happened?
A lot of homeless individuals, they ended up just completely leaving the area. They scraped up whatever they could scrape up, got on a Greyhound or whatever mode of transportation they could get on, and got to somewhere else.
Okay. So now they got to navigate an environment that they're not familiar with.
Which the frustration becomes, we did not solve our homelessness problem and our house problem. We just gave it to some other jurisdiction to deal with. Well, just for the sake of keeping the nation's capital clean.
To your point, I would agree with you. I'll take it a step further. We didn't even pass the buck on it because it's still an American problem. We just moved it. We literally took the issue and moved. And put it over there. I'll get to it when I get to it, which is we will never get to it, which actually leads to, because you both had said it, the notion of being crime free. So next question is, what does it actually mean to declare a city as crime free? Because for those of you who don't know, Mario Bowser came out and said, because
we're going to talk about her in this podcast too.
Because Donald Trump let the National Guard in, crime is down. Carjacking is down. The city is crime free. And I pause because I want to make sure that I demonstrate how to take a breath, to take a moment, to not have an emotional reaction that goes against your goals and your desires for yourself. But what does it mean to be crime free?
Definitionally, that is an oxymoron.
Why is that, Keith?
Because crime is still happening just because people aren't seeing it or they're not getting locked up for it.
Yes.
We still have speed cameras that clock people going over the speed limit. That is technically a crime.
Yeah.
People are still jaywalking in the street. That is technically a crime. Now, if they wanted to say that we have seen a decrease in violent crimes or carjackings, that would be more definitionally accurate. But to say a community is crime free is just BS. I wish that term would just completely leave the lexicon, because just because you don't see it, that does not mean a crime is not happening. A crime is happening right now as we speak that no one is seeing.
The White House is committing crimes.
Exactly.
I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, we literally just bombed a boat in Venezuela. Donald Trump did a meme coin scam right when he got into office. We're literally the courts just said he violated the emoluments clause. Like, they're literally now taking money and doing bribery out in our faces outright, and no one's saying anything. But I digress. Dr. Bell, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
All that. And I think that it just keeps going to, in my mind, keeps going to the space of, you just want to do the sleight of hand, how you do the, like, look at this over here, and then all this other stuff is going on. The idea of a crime-free city is nonsensical. Right. To your point, in my social worker heart of hearts, if you have military occupation in the streets and people are feeling more confined to their homes, sometimes those homes aren't safe.
Correct.
Right? If there's a pressure cooker environment now outside of your house because your neighborhood or community, and that is being internalized by members of the household, you just don't know what we are creating in that environment, and then resources are down. How safe do I feel to access those resources? I just feel like we've created a space, and I say we, but a space that is absolutely not crime free and could possibly be creating an increase in some interpersonal violence.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Dr. Bell, when you said it made me think about it, because you're right. Like, the home is sometimes not the safest environment. Outside of the home is where sometimes people get their peace. And when you said that, it made me think about it, that just because you flood an area with uniforms and guns doesn't mean you saw, like you said, the crime is happening somewhere where we can't see. You just forced it back into its house. But then what happens when you release the thing? It's like, did you really stop the bleeding, or did you just pack it with gauze? Because when I take the gauze off, is the wound going to still bleed again? I didn't think of it till you put it that way, because you're right there. We just forced everybody to go home while resources are down. And one thing that kind of came out when you were talking was, what type of, when we say crime free, what type of crime are you referring to? Because you both said that the notion of a crime free city is, it's an oxymoron. You're not going to stop crime. Everybody, we violate the crime when we drive. We violate the crime when we jaywalk. But also, I was thinking, going back to the criminalization of black people, what type of crime are you trying to stop? Meaning, what type of group of people are you going after? What constitute as crime free and crime stopping? Because blue collar crime, I'm willing to bet, is still going on. I'm willing to bet there's still insider trades going on among the members of Congress. I'm willing to bet that there's somebody embezzling people's retirement right now as we speak. So you're talking about what? Carjacking, maybe an assault here or there. Those are all worth stopping. Yes, you should stop them. But I think the important thing is, how are you stopping them?
Right. And it goes back to the surveilling thing, right? So videos I've seen, social media, first-person accounts. I mean, I'm seeing federal agents on basketball courts. Have y'all seen those videos?
No, I haven't seen those yet.
Yeah.
Just walking around and looking at people's cars.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen those.
But young people playing basketball and being asked for their identification. I've seen videos of people sitting on their porch at their house being asked for their IDs, right? So, again, it goes to your point. Who's the threat?
Yes.
Right? And if you're surveilling me on my porch, you're making me feel as though I am the target and I am the threat.
Right. When all I'm doing is sitting here.
And if we're going to take this particular approach about like, oh, we need to eliminate crime, be down on crime, not that I'm advocating this, but that's how you know it's theater and it's performative. The majority, if not all, of the National Guard are not even in the places where the majority of the crime happens. Now, I understand theoretically the situation was like, well, they were never supposed to be there to begin with. They're supposed to be more in the commercial spaces where the tourists are, which frees up the police to kind of handle the issues in the more unsafe or dangerous communities. But in my mind, if it's a situation where like you want to eliminate crime and you're so worried about the violence, why not go into the communities where it actually happens? And again, I'm not advocating the over-policing of impoverished communities that are dealing with violence, but that's what I mean when I say it's very performative.
Yeah, because it's just, I'm doing it just to do it. I'm not even going... Like, I agree with you. Don't send them into the black community. Don't send them into the projects. Don't send them into Southeast where me and you grew up at. But what I am saying is that you're doing something just to say you're doing it without actually doing it. It literally is just the theater in and of itself. And that actually is a good segue to the next thing I wanted to ask everybody was, what type of impact do you think this language will have as far as the perception of black people? Because we talked about some of the cities he's going after. We know exactly what this really actually is about to a certain degree, the policing of a certain group of people, those communities. What impact do you think this will have as far as the perception of crime in black people?
Oh, the perception that it continues the same trope that we've been dealing with, as in like, oh, black people are inherently violent, inherently savages, uncivilized. Their children are out of control. Their children are a threat. It just continues the justification of all of that. It's a blowback or a pushback from all of the things that we were fighting for during the pandemic, when even before George Floyd. Just a blowback against all of those things where we were stepping forward and saying, you need to rethink policing, and particularly repolicing how you're going to police us. because this is not effective, this is not safe, doesn't feel safe, we're not getting the type of support that we actually need. It's a pushback against that, because we, just with the George Floyd situation by itself, and not to even mention the other countless interactions that we saw that were traumatizing, we were able to show this is an example where we're talking about when you are a person of color and you're over policed, so much so to the fact that when you're laying on the ground telling people you can't breathe, they think you're lying, and then you end up dying. It's a blowback against that to kind of reinforce, to get back that idea of, see, black people are dangerous. They are a threat. Matter of fact, the police aren't a threat to them. They're a threat to the police. And it's going to reinforce that to a base who's already thought that. And it's going to reinforce that, or start to kind of support for maybe a group of people who've been on the fence about it. They haven't made up their minds about black folks because maybe they haven't been around enough black folks. But it's going to be a situation where, unfortunately, as always, historically, it's going to come back to bite us in the butt.
I would agree with that 1,000%. Because my main concern will always be is we always just want to be left alone and given a fair shake and opportunity. And then I know y'all have heard about, this is a slight pivot from the topic, but y'all heard about that white town that they're building
out in the Ozarks.
Say it again.
Out in the Ozarks.
Yes. And then this guy went online saying, why would we care if black people built their own town? We would love that. Yeah, historically, we tried.
Yeah, you didn't
multiple times. Matter of fact, and they dropped bombs on them. They turned some of them into historical lakes. Seneca Valley, which is now Central Park. I just want to point that out, that I know it's a slight segue because I use that to say we want to be left alone and given an equal opportunity for generations, and it's never fully given to us. And to your point, it is going to be it's the same old narrative. Like the criminalization of black people, as I said earlier, is the justification for some horrendous policies going forward. The only thing that I take comfort in knowing is that I do feel like the majority of people know that this is theater, that this is just something to distract us from. But the thing that bothers me is the report that came out that, I don't know how true it is, but some people are saying, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. That's the thing that bothers me, because even if that's not true, he thought that he can go to an old playbook and say, crime. I'm going to deal with crime. I'm going to be tough on crime. I'm going to show strength by dealing with crime. Let me send the National Guard and these federal agents to deal with crime. Which city has the most crime? Washington, D.C. Which city has a high population of black people? Washington, D.C. Dr. Bell, do you think this is a real attempt, or is it just image management at this point?
It is image management, 100%. And if it is a real attempt, that is terrifying, because there's nothing being done behind it, as we've already said, that is substantive enough that this would make an actual lasting, impactful change.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely just for image sake. When you pack up and destroy unhoused people's camps and like everything that they have collected for themselves, and just dismantle and you have no intention on solving problems. You have an intention of cleaning up the street and making sure that the city looks the way you want it to look, because you are performing political theater and this is your stage.
And one of the things in this situation is, I'll speak more so specifically for black people in DC, the psychological implications about black people in their leadership in politics. Because, and I will tread this delicately, not even because of I'm afraid of Muriel Bowser, because I'm not, but I also understand the predicament that she's in. She has, in my opinion, amongst her black constituents, committed political suicide.
Oh, I would agree with that.
And I get the position that she's in, and I get the play that she's going to try to pull, which is this. I get that she's placating right now because the way that the thing is structured for DC government is that she does not have a lot of leverage.
Right.
So she's going along to get along. And then later on, when things settle down, or even if we get like a different president that is not Donald Trump or as a Democrat, then maybe she'll try to have a conversation about what she was trying to do. And for the most part, people are aware of the fact that that's what she's trying to do. But at the same time, and I'll speak for myself, it's also very difficult for me to hear you sit there and say, we're going to comply with the federal law enforcement. when we're talking about you're smart, you're a black woman who grew up in DC, you know what this is all about. And so you're placating and going along to get along at the expense of your citizens. I get that you're thinking about this from a strategic standpoint of like, well, if I tried to push too hard, he can activate Congress to say, extend this, which in my opinion, personally for her, even though it would probably hurt her as far as like it would hurt her in the eyes of Donald Trump, that would be the sword to fall on, to be the mayor to say, you can try to do that, but I don't think you necessarily have $1 million a day to keep this going for 4 years.
No, I would agree with you. I don't
but
understand.
She's choosing not to.
Yeah, I agree with you. Go ahead, keep right on there. Go ahead, finish your thought.
But she's choosing not to, because a part of it is, in my opinion, selfishness, because she wants to run for mayor again. And she wants to make sure that she has that opportunity. Not necessarily realizing, me personally, and I get it, we all have to make decisions for ourselves based off of our needs and our wants. Me personally, you would be more impactful as being the mayor who really kind of say, I double dog dare you, and of course, sacrifice yourself, but then have the respect of your residents to where if you decided, even if you got pushed out of office, to run again after this administration, people will 100% vote for you, because they would think that this is the mayor that would stand up to the president and say, not for my constituents. But the fact that you are rolling over, and I don't want to use that term, I'll use a different one. The fact that you are placating is political suicide amongst old school black voters, progressive white voters, progressive old school black Washingtonians, all in the mix of this. Because now they're just going to look at you and say like, yeah, we understand to an extent why you had to do it, but we were in an era where we needed pushback, and you didn't push back. You did it in the first administration when it was convenient, it wasn't easy, and he wasn't given all this smoke. But when it really mattered and when it really counted, you kind of cowered.
I don't know if that's her base, if you want my honest opinion. I don't think that that's who she campaigns for, in my opinion.
The progressive whites, you're right, she does. But even still, they're going to feel the same way.
No, I know they are. But to your point, what you said earlier, I wanted to say I agree with you, because I don't know if everybody pays attention, but you're never going to bend the knee and give enough for him to be satisfied. The people who hold their own and have a long-lasting situation right now are the ones who are fighting back. The governor of Illinois, he's fighting back. He's all over the media. I don't even know. Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is ahead. If the elections were tomorrow, Gavin Newsom's probably the president of the United. He's definitely going to win the Democratic nomination to run for office if the elections was tomorrow. When you push back, they kind of cower. They don't have a response. When you bend the knee, they just demand more and more and more and more. There's not enough that you can give. There's no satiating this situation here, to your point, because I think that even if she did give pushback, times are hard. The jobs report just came out. We now have more unemployed people than we have job opportunities. So I can understand why she would not want to lose, air quote on that, her job. But I do think that if you're right, if she was to push back, her options to run again and get elected would just skyrocket. It'd shoot through the roof again. Dr. Bell, I did have one. Did you have any thoughts if I jump to another question real quick?
Just when you were talking about the power dynamic, it makes me think of power dynamics in abusive relationships, right? Like anytime you're in that dynamic, there's nothing that you're going to do to satisfy the abuser, right? Like you could bend the knee and do all the things, but when that dynamic has been set, that's it.
No, I think that was a good analogy, because I often find that in that dynamic there, it's a reinforcement mechanism at that point.
That's it.
Like if I hit you hard enough, you'll do what I want. Why do you do this? Why do you do this to me? Why do you make me do this to you? Why can't you just listen? So it's kind of like when you, and I'm, keep in mind, it's more intricate than that when we're talking about domestic violence and abuse. But yes, I can see what you mean in that regard, because it's only going to make them want to do it more. Whereas in this situation here, you would probably want to fight back for your constituents. And you said something earlier. I did want to go back to it. So since we're here, I'm going to talk about it. Pushing the people back into their home with resources are down. When you said that, for the average listener, what does that mean? Like if I'm listening to you, Dr. Bell, right now, you're like, yeah, they pushed me back inside the house. The resources are down. what are we talking about? What are you referring to when it comes to that?
Sure, it depends on what your home life is like, right? We take for granted the idea that everyone's home is jovial and happy and peaceful and good. That's not always the case. And going out and being in your community, especially Black communities, people build relationship and build collaboration amongst themselves outside of the home often, right? And that's true whether or not the inside of the house is a scary place or not. But in some instances, inside of the home can be a very scary place, and that could be from any sort of abuse. That could be from complete lack of resources, right? You spend all day outside because you might be able to stop by someone's house and eat something here, and then people just are wandering and enjoying their neighborhood, and they're collecting resources along the way. But when you don't feel safe or comfortable outside anymore, you've been pushed back on the inside. Again, we don't know what the inside of your home looks like. We take for granted that it's a safe and happy place.
No, and that was a good segue, because when we say DC's crime free or it's a safe city, who are we making it safe for? Like when you hear that language, what do you think they mean when they say, well, we're making it safe? Who are they making it safe for?
I think they're making it safe for tourists. I think they're making it safe for
Congress.
Yes, exactly. But I definitely don't think they are talking about the people that they are surveilling and policing. Because again, to do that, you would be having to use this massive spend that you're having right now to put resources in those communities to actually address the issues that might be making the crime rate go up. So since we're completely neglecting to do that altogether, you have to be doing this, again, political theater, this whole stage presentation, you have to be doing that to clean this up for Congress members that have to, fly into town, like, senators and all the things, right? And then as well as our tourists that come to visit the nation's capital. Is now his great stage.
But the interesting thing about that is, to your point, you're right, I would agree with that you're cleaning it up for a small sect or small group of people. And when you said that for tourism, they said that when the occupation first started, I don't know what the current numbers are now, but restaurant reservations actually started to go down. That it started to have a negative impact on the actual local economy. So in that regard, keeping it within the realm of mental health, right? Because this is all interconnected. You have inflation going up. We're having a trade war that's killing certain industries. Job opportunities are scarce. You're occupying the nation's capital. So you as a Washingtonian, if you were a federal government worker in Washington, D.C., you just more than likely probably lost your job. Or you have a private sector job that are now making cutbacks because the economic situation in the United States is going awry. And now we have limited resources and an occupation. My question to you guys is, what type of message or what type of mental health blowback do you think will come as a result of that?
I think that, one, I think you're going to see a lot of people dealing with depression because
so.
The loss of job. Also, even though right now we know it's not going to be extended, but also the feeling of just being watched and surveillance. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to experience that when they're going out to eat, as in like, oh, well, what happens if I leave the restaurant and maybe I had one too many and I'm about to get the Uber anyway, but they said like, sir, you're a little too intoxicated. All the different things about that, the anxiety that comes into play with that. And also not to mention the economic impact that leads to a lot of mental health issues. Like, my thing is, for people who are already on the edge before all of this, if you just lost your job and it's difficult to get a job, my concern is, what is suicidality going to look like, or suicidal ideation, whether it's active or passive? What is that going to look like nationally, but also more specifically for DC, that's been experiencing a lot of the brunt of these policies? What is it going to look like locally? What's it going to look like particularly for everyone, but also because I love my community, but also what's it going to look like for Black people? What's that going to look like for young Black people? Because one of the things we were talking about we know about youth crime is a lack of opportunity.
Yes.
One thing that nobody wants to talk about is the reasons why youth carjackings occur. It's not even just because young people want to profile, be cool, or be wild and reckless. Yes, that's a part of it, have some fun. But also, what ends up happening is, low-key, those cars end up in chop shops where those young people end up getting money. Why? Because it's difficult for them to find employment.
Right.
And now if we're at a place where like job growth is stagnant, what do you think is going to happen? When young people don't have a way to earn money And particularly to your point, for young people who may be in households where it's like, okay, I need this money to get out
Or
of this
I need
situation.
this money to take care of
Or I
this
need-
household.
Or to take care of
contribute.
this household. What do you think they're going to turn to? What do you think is going to happen?
That's a good, and it's not even just to that point. It wouldn't even just be young people. After a while, it'd be adults. It would become adults. That's how, with lack of opportunity, it increases crime. Can you imagine? I had a client today. I'm gonna connect the two. She said, as a mom of 2 black boys, she is scared of sending her black sons outside of her house with the way DC is now. Could you imagine being a husband or the man of the house, having to take care of everybody in this house? I must provide. The baby needs food and formula. The wife is stressed out with nothing to cook. It's the same as when you come home from being incarcerated. All the research on that. I'm not given an opportunity to provide for my family. What do I turn to? Crime. There are thank you. Crimes of necessity. That is a real phenomenon. I have to survive. I have to take care of me and mine. So people turn to the opportunities that are available to them. And you said something I didn't quite think about. You're right. Suicide ideation. Just the thought of it, the flirting with the idea of it, because you losing your job on a whim. The economy has gone up as far as prices of things have gone up, and there are no job opportunities out there. Stress, depression is going to be at an all-time high. And even if you are one of the ones who managed to keep your jobs, anxiety and fear is probably running rampant. You don't want to say or do anything that cause you to lose the little bit you have. And when I say little bit, I truly mean that. Like, for instance, we live in the nation's capital. $100,000 in 2025 is not the same $100,000 that was in 2020, 2015, and 2010. $100,000 in the nation's capital. I'm just being honest. I know a lot of you listening can feel this.
Single.
Yeah, $100,000 might as well be $60,000 with the current cost of things. And I think that puts people in a pressure cooker, like you were saying earlier as well. So then now, to your point, you're dealing with all this stress. You're coming home. Your home is supposed to be. I often tell my clients that your home should be your place of peace. When you go out into the world and deal with the stresses of the job, traffic, microaggressions, whatever it is, you're supposed to be able to come home and feel zen. You and your partner, y'all supposed to relax each other. Well, then if it's stress out there and you now got to come home and it's another stress as well, there's no release. That's just a bunch of cortisol flooding the system. So no, I didn't think of that till you had said that, because yes, like the two things that you both shared, they're interconnected in that regard. I can't go outside to even decompress. Which is actually interesting as I think about it now, because smoking weed in DC is legal, but it's a federal crime. And these are federal agents running around the city. It's kind of like, oh, you're going to have to put that out or put these handcuffs on.
It's giving trap.
Exactly. It's giving trap. It is.
But you
I
know
can't
what?
even smoke a J outside to decompress. I can't smoke it in the house because the baby in there. You telling me I can't be... Dang, I can't do it anywhere.
But you know what? I got to give our flowers to our judiciary, not so much the Supreme Court. I have a lot of opinions about that, but more so, as I like to say, these radical judges that try to impose their own agenda, which is rich coming from an administration that does the exact same thing they want to accuse the other judges of. Is these judges, and particularly the DC judges, give them their flowers, who are getting these cases and hearing out, because they want to tout out the fact that we've arrested so many people, who are hearing these cases, listening to them, and like dismissed.
Yeah,
it's like, wait, they had you want to occupy my time with this when there's murders going on in the city? Dismissed. And they're closing out the cases, not because they don't care, but because they recognize in the grander scheme of offenses, of crimes, like, are you serious? The things that I see on a regular, you want to bring this into my court to prove a point, to do some political grandstanding? You could do that on your own time. Close it out. And it's also been those same judges that have been holding our government up in the sense of saying, this is illegal. You are impeding on people's rights. Due process is for everybody, because the language in the Constitution does not say citizens. It says persons.
Yes, everybody is entitled to due process. And there was something you said. Had any of your clients talked about this in therapy.
Yes.
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 Mine's too. But Dr.
Oh my
Bill,
gosh,
go
the
ahead.
uptick in, we were speaking about this earlier, but couples counseling,
Yep.
the uptick in couples counseling has been real.
Hey, Dr. Bell, you see how the off-camera things come on camera?
I see that.
go
I
right
see
ahead.
that.
The last season and the season before that, it was so many times we had an off-camera moment. Hey, y'all, we always say that. Hey, y'all, this happened off-camera. Now it's on camera.
And I produce like record.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why I did that. Hey, y'all, this happened off-camera. And now
Right,
it's on camera.
right.
Go ahead, Dr.
Makes
Bell.
sense.
Yep.
But the uptick has been real. And up front, you get your little intake forms and it says, couples counseling, having some relationship dynamic issues, whatever. But more and more, those dynamic issues have been, I'm thinking of a specific couple right now, but both have lost their jobs. They've had to take a roommate into their home to be able to
Cover
all the bills. Obviously, that adds stress to a relationship that you have never had to have this before. Very successful people in their respective career paths. So no indication ever. It's not like when you're working in spaces that maybe you get cut all the time. You know what I mean? Like if that's not something that's in your mind frame that can happen and it's unexpected and it's out of your control, it wasn't due to your performance.
Right.
It wasn't due, right? That takes a toll on you. And for it to happen to both people in that relationship, the depression, just due to that hopelessness that you were speaking about earlier, it is rough and it is hard to watch these relationships bear the brunt of external forces. Overall, I would say it's back to being in the house. Our homes and our home lives are so important to our health.
Very much so.
And it's unfortunate. The external forces are definitely pushing up against our home lives.
When you said that, it made me think about it with two clients in particular. I had one client, he had just gotten a government job, got let go. And one thing that comes up in therapy that I see with clients is that when they do find a job, it's at a significantly reduced pay that they were having before. And a lot of them feel as though that employers know it. They're offering lower than what they normally would have offered because they know that it's hard to find a job. The second one, this client just happened this week. He literally got let go, not for performance based. They were making cutbacks. Out of the blue, he's text me, Dr. B, I just lost my job. I do 15-minute check-ins with my clients to check in with them, to talk to them, and process it. His performances was fine. They were just doing cutbacks. Last one hired. First one fired. He just had a newborn child and he just bought his first house. And the thing on his mind is, you can hear it in his voice, but he's trying to do, a man's things like, I got to figure this out. I got to grind it out. Which, when you think about it, for those of you who, to put it in context, to have to shift that fast, compartmentalize and suppress, it is not always the healthiest thing. Because what happens is your emotions transform into something else. Depression can transform into anger, and anger can impact your behavior within your household. But you do need a moment to depress, because depression is a normal human emotion. Clinical depression is a problem. When your body depresses, it's your emotions trying to get your mind to let go of what was, what you had going on, and what you thought would be the future. He didn't even give himself a chance to do that because he in his mind, the mortgage is due next month. I have a newborn. I have to figure it out. The sense of desperation and urgency kicked in. So to your point, those are the two stories that came to my mind, that as far as how this is impacting everybody as it goes on. And of course the fears and the anxieties of, will I have my job, and survivor's remorse for those government workers that kept their job.
Yeah.
They miss their coworkers. The office is not the same. I made it, but it just sucks thinking about my coworker who didn't make it.
For me, it's been a situation, I'm thinking about one client in particular, and she used the word very powerfully. She's like, this is degrading.
Yeah.
I have been a civil servant for 20 years, and all of a sudden we get emails saying, oh, sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. Not based off of any job performance or misstep or any mistakes or anything like that. Just this arbitrary political decision that had upended a 20-year career that she was very proud of. Right? 20 years of committing yourself and 20 years of listening to, she's a DC native, this idea that you're told when you grow up in DC, go get yourself a good federal government
job,
Yeah.
boy.
Go to school, get that degree, go get a good federal government job. And she did that because the ethos, or the myth now has always been, you get yourself a good federal government job and you do what you're supposed to do, you retire, you get all your benefits, they're going to take good care of you. Like that gone.
Literally within days and months, because that was the traditional pathway to black success was get yourself a good government job. Go to school, get yourself a government job. Even if you didn't go to school, if you get at an entry level position, like you said,
Work your way up.
How many people we knew that our grandmother, that was it,
Our grandmother,
what was it, Keith? The printing
government printing office.
Government printing office.
Our grandmother worked in the cafeteria at Trinity. Well, back then was Trinity College. Then part-time she worked at a deli off of Benton Road called Sporty's. And then over the course of some years, she was able to actually get a job in the government printing office and got certifications and worked her way up and was able to buy a bigger home for our mother and our uncles. And this was done by a woman who had to drop out of high school because she became a teen mom.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore.
An opportunity to pull your family up with low to no skills going forward. And I want to say you touched on that, Dr. Bell, where you said with all of these cuts, it impacted black women. Did I hear that correctly? Can I ask you a question? Because now it just sparked in my head. As a successful black woman, right? Let's shout that out, as a successful black woman. Knowing that the government was an opportunity for a lot of black women to carve out a pathway on their own, to do for themselves, to have a long-lasting career, because we always wanted that female voice there, what would go through the mind of a successful black woman who's you made it to be in a GS-14, a GS-15, a GS-13 in certain cases. You're here, and next thing you know, they let you go just like that. Out of the whim, out of nowhere. Because this was your opportunity, this was your way to make a way, and all of a sudden it's gone just like that.
I think you said a powerful word used by your client, that just feeling degraded and devalued, right? And I think that's always something that I think women in general have to navigate, is that feeling of worth and value in male-dominated spaces, right?
Yeah.
So being let go for no reason, no explanation, just because, right, your number was up and you're gone. That level of feeling devalued would be awful. But there's also this thing about success that I think identity really partners really closely with that success. And all of a sudden, who are you? Who am I now that this part of my life, everything that I've worked for is now gone and I don't know how to get it back? So who am I now? Where's my value now?
I feel like I know the answer to this because I didn't think of it that way until you said it. You're right, 'cause so many people connect their identity to their job. When you ask them, tell me a little bit about yourself, first thing they say, occupation. They don't say child of God, they say occupation. Do you feel as though, because by and large, if the statistics are still the same, black women are still the most educated group population in the United States. I feel like I know the answer. I'm just asking for our audience. Do you feel like it would be difficult after losing that identity for a black woman to go back into the industry to carve out a new identity for herself?
I mean, I think yes and no. Yes, because it would be difficult for anybody. It's difficult to have stuff like a rug literally snatched out from under you. That shakes your confidence, especially when we're saying it's not a self-assessment of where did I go wrong? How do I, course navigate? It's just, you just cut. That shakes you. I think that would rock you to your core. But I think no, because black women always done made a way. That's what we do.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Does that become, now I'm just going to ask, it's an interesting topic. Does that become, in your eyes, a strength or a weakness or both, or is it just one or the other?
It's both.
Both?
It's both. It's a strength because it's necessary. It's a weakness because it's necessary. It shouldn't have to be necessary. It's exhausting. But it is our strength because we're able to make it happen.
And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because it made me think about going back to something that I said earlier, that from a male's perspective, I can only think that way, right? Because that's why I gave such an eloquent example of I got to let go of my job. I got to take care of my wife. Got to take care of these kids. The baby got to eat. Time to go rob. Time to go sell drugs. Time to steal. Whatever, a crime of survival. I can't think from the perspective of a woman. and you are a very successful and accomplished black woman, to lose, if you, as a single black woman in a society that is very patriarchal, male dominated, where the remember this, you're supposed to be able to, the husband's supposed to be able to provide, woman stays at home for a child. From your professional opinion, what type of psychological impact do you think that the job cutting, the inflation will have on a black woman that literally just, like you said, I just got chopped. It's not work performance, it's not work based. I'm here, and now I'm here and I'm single, and I'm doing this all on my own. What was supposed to be thriving is now not.
I think the depression that we talked about, and maybe not clinical level of depression, but depressed feelings for sure, that hopelessness, anxiety, because what is going to happen next? Maybe I do make a way, but am I going to be susceptible to something like this again? I think you become hypervigilant in a lot of different ways to ensure and try to create a protective layer and safety around yourself, because if you don't have a counterpart, a partner in your home that's helping you to shoulder all these burdens, it's on you. It's on you.
That's interesting to hear, because the shouldering of a burden, my dad, Barry, love that guy. Love him to death. You know what he taught? You know what he taught me? Love you, Dad. You know what he taught me growing up? It's my job to do that. So in my head, what you said resonated with me. If I lost everything today, I'm gonna do what my client did. I'm gonna compartment, and I'm a licensed therapist, a whole doctor in it. I'm immediately going to compartmentalize and realize, all right, life dealt you a raw hand. I got to shoulder the burden for the sake of this family. And I think that that's an interesting perspective you share, because I would take that all on to myself. I wouldn't even think to burden my woman with it.
Right.
I'd say, I'm going to figure this out. I promise you, one way or another, I'm going to figure it out.
To kind of connect what you two said, thinking about it historically, I think what we're getting at the core of it from a mental health standpoint when we're talking about black people is the fact that this has become a survival practice that we have always had to engage in, that has become a cultural practice.
Yes.
To where as though we do it innately without thinking about it. And to some levels, we kind of encourage it amongst each other, because there's never really been a space to kind of, as you mentioned, allow those feelings to unfold and accept the reality of where we are, to kind of allow your body to release it, to face it, to do what it needs to do so you can move forward in a healthy way. We just never really had that luxury. And it's interesting to see how that has become a cultural practice that I am very proud of us for trying to figure out, well, how do we remove that from the culture? Because it's one of the things that leads to a lot of suicidality. It's a lot of things that leads to depression. And also, not even to mention the physical health components, high blood pressure, diabetes, weight gain, not even
digestive issues, heart attack,
issues with
arrhythmic
sleeping,
issues
right?
with sleeping. Yes.
So that when a coping mechanism amongst a group of people becomes a cultural practice, that still, even in this day, we can still see it. It may look different in some aspects in the way that maybe our grandparents and our parents experienced it. But when you really get up close to it and talk to a person, you see it for what it is. So that's why I always love when I see particularly black men, older black men, younger black men, older black women, younger black women come together and they kind of talk. And then you hear your elder kind of say, oh, I've been there. As in, it's like, oh, baby, I know what that's like. You got to raise some kids and you got to go to work and things go wrong and it all falls on you. Or if you're a father, as in like, man, things go horribly wrong. They're looking to you for guidance and calm. In your mind, you're in turmoil, but you're like, we going to be okay.
Yes.
I'm going to figure this out.
Fixed point. Yeah.
And then internally you're falling apart, because if you're a woman, secretly in your room, probably stressing and crying and falling apart in those spaces. If you're a man, you're somewhere drinking or smoking, or someone's gonna catch the brunt of that displaced anger.
Yes, yeah. Or you gonna cry in the car. He gonna cry in the car. You know that he gonna go cry in the car, like they said in Friday. Yes, I'm in the car. I'm letting it out, because to your point, I have to be fixed north. Everybody in the household has the right to break down and turn to you. I am the fixed north. So I think that was actually a really, really good conversation. I hope everybody got something out of it. I truly do. And as usual, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Click that bell icon so you can get the notifications. That way you know when a new episode drops. And go ahead and click the subscribe button. It helps us out. It helps out the algorithm. And it helps spread this message and share it. We hope you got something out of this. Thank you for listening to this episode of Forest Therapeutics with your host, Dr. B.
Dr. LaKeith.
Dr. Gigi.
And we will see you later.